Every afternoon, Thomas the tank engine puffs along his branch line with Annie and Clarabel. First, they pass the farms. Next, they pass Elizabeth, waiting at her level crossing. Then, they come to a small station outside of a village. This is a special place to Thomas. Whenever children hear Thomas coming along, they get out of Bertie the bus, waving until he is out of sight. One day, Thomas was running late. He had stopped at a red light to talk to some new children. Percy the green engine was waiting too. "Hurry up, Thomas," called Percy when the signal dropped. "If you're late, Sir Topham Hatt might get a new engine to replace you." He would never do that, thought Thomas, but he was worried. Next day, Thomas hurried along the line. Just ahead was the small station. There, on the platform, was an inspector waving a red flag. Next, Thomas saw some children. They looked very worried. Something must be wrong, thought Thomas. "Help, Thomas, help! We're glad to see you," called the children. "Please, will you take us home?" The station master explained to Thomas's driver that Bertie had broken down, and all the parents would be worried if the children were late. Thomas waited as the children clambered into Annie and Clarabel. Then he took the children to the next station. When Thomas finished his journey, he was very late. He was worried that Sir Topham Hatt might be cross with him. "I warned Thomas," puffed Percy to Edward. "He's been late one time too many. He'll be in trouble now." But next morning, when Thomas picked up his passengers, Sir Topham Hatt was nowhere to be seen. "Thank goodness," sighed Thomas. Thomas knows every part of his line. Just ahead was a stretch where the hot sun had bent the rails on the track. "Careful, Thomas," called his driver, but it was too late. "That's done it," said his driver. "We shan't get any further today." "But what about my passengers?" asked Thomas. "Don't worry, they'll be looked after," replied his driver. While workmen repaired the line, Thomas had to shunt trucks in the yard. Bertie came to see him. "I understand you need my help again." "Yes, Bertie," replied Thomas sadly. "I can't run without my rails." Bertie set off to collect Thomas's passengers. "Hello, Bertie," they said. "We're glad you're here." Bertie drove along the road that runs by the railway. He stopped at each station along the line. Sometimes he stopped between stations to let people off closer to their homes. Thomas felt miserable. "I've lost my passengers to Bertie. They like him better than me." A few days later, Sir Topham Hatt came to see Thomas. "Your branch line is repaired. I'm going to change your timetable so that you and Bertie can work together more." When Thomas reached the station, there to his relief were all his passengers. "Bertie is a good bus, but we missed our train rides with you," they said. Later, Thomas spoke to Bertie. "Thank you for looking after my passengers." "That's all right, Thomas. I like to make new friends, but I'm glad to share them with you." "Bertie, you're a good friend indeed." One summer's evening, the engines were idling in Tidmar's sheds when Sir Topham Hatt arrived. "There's an important goods train that needs to be delivered to the other railway tonight. Henry, I want you to take the train straight away." "But sir," Henry asked, "who will look after the flying kipper?" "Edward could do it," suggested Thomas. "Yes," Percy chimed in. "Edward knows how to do everything." Edward chuckled. "Well, I wouldn't say I know how to do everything, but I'd be happy to help, sir." "Very well, Edward. I trust you will do a good job." And Sir Topham Hatt drove away. "You can keep your smelly fish," laughed Gordon. "You'd never see me pulling such a dirty goods train." Edward smiled. I'm just happy to be useful, Gordon, even if it means doing something I'd never done before. Speaking of, would you mind telling me how to pull the kipper, Henry? Don't be silly, Edward. I haven't got time to hang around here. I've got a train to take. Besides, you're experienced. You'll figure it out on your own. Henry puffed away, leaving Edward feeling rather concerned. I certainly hope I can, he wished. Late that night, Edward arrived at the docks to collect the flying kipper. We'll need a few extra vans for tonight, said the dock foreman. Please fetch some from the sidings. But Henry hadn't told Edward which vans were needed for the kipper, so the old engine took a long time finding them, and by the time he was able to leave, it was very late indeed. Later, Edward arrived at his station to drop off some crates of fish. James was collecting the night mail nearby. For you! Any more fish on that train and you'll need 2 washdowns to get rid of the smell. Well, it's all part of the job, I suppose. Would you mind helping me up the hill, James? The train's a bit heavier than I expected and I'm already running a bit late. Me? I'll pull a fish train? Blech! Don't be ridiculous. Besides, if you could catch up to me running away, you can make up the time on your own. James snorted away, leaving Edward to tackle the hill on his own. Edward tried his hardest, but the train was too heavy. His driver backed down to the bottom of the hill and uncoupled the last few vans. After taking the first few vans over the hill, Edward returned to collect the others, but now he was later than ever. Edward worked hard to make up for lost time, making his deliveries as fast as he could, but his hurrying was using a lot of water. At last he arrived at the final station. Gordon was there with the Midnight Express. For someone who tries to be on time, you're rather behind schedule, Edward. Well, as always, I made it in the end, Gordon, but I could really use a nice long drink. The water tower here is out of order, so would you mind telling me where the nearest one is? I haven't got time to help you, Edward. I've got a train to pull and a well-earned rest when I'm done. And besides, you're clever enough to find a tower on your own. Then he wheeshed away. Thanks for the help, sighed Edward. Edward looked all along the main line for a water tower, but couldn't find one anywhere. And soon he ground to a halt on the main line. His driver phoned for help, and Boko arrived to take Edward to the station for a drink. The Topham Hatt was waiting for him. What's happened to you, Edward? Not only was the kipper late, but you went and stranded yourself on the main line. I'm sorry, sir. I did try to be on time, but all the other engines thought I could manage on my own. So they didn't ask me when I asked for it, so I started late and had to rush, which ran my tank dry. Sir Topham Hatt was cross, and spoke sternly to the big engines that night in the sheds. Edward may be wise, but that doesn't mean he can do everything on his own. You 3 should have helped him out when he needed it. You should know that by now. Yes, sir. We're sorry, sir. And? We're sorry, Edward, sighed the big engines. I should think so, thundered Sir Topham Hatt, because you'll all be taking extra goods trains for a whole month. The 3 big engines gasped. Gordon, you'll start tonight with the kipper. Gordon spluttered. The flying kipper, but sir, Gordon, that's an order. And Sir Topham Hatt walked away. Well, it looks like I will catch you pulling a dirty goods train after all, Gordon, laughed Edward. Gordon just groaned. James was cross. Sir Topham Hatt had sent him to collect Welsh coal for Henry. He grumbled as the trucks bounced behind him. It's not fair. I have to cover Henry's trains when he's sick, and now I'm his errand boy. Ridiculous. When the Welsh coal arrived, Henry was delighted. He never felt so well in his life. Sir Topham Hatt had signs placed near the coal bunker, which read, "Special Welsh coal for Henry only." The other engines understood and respected this. All except James. "Look at him swanking about," James complained to Edward. "I fetched it for him, and I don't even get a thank you." "I'm sure it's appreciated," Edward smiled. "I must admit that coal has done wonders for Henry. Imagine what it might do for us." Edward meant this in jest, but James smirked. "I wonder." "Get that idea out of your smoke box," frowned Edward. "You know full well not to take that coal. Poor Henry has suffered enough. He doesn't need you pilfering the one thing that makes him better." James said nothing more, but he began making a plan. Over the next few days, James pestered his crew about the coal. No matter how he asked, the answer was always no. But James was persistent and wouldn't relent. "He's insufferable," groaned the driver. "Perhaps we should just give him some." "You know we can't," sighed the fireman. Unless..." The fireman smirked and whispered his idea to the driver. Next morning, James's crew came early to the sheds. He was surprised to see them. "You know, old boy," whispered the driver, "you're right. You do deserve some of Henry's coal. Let's hurry to the bunker, but keep quiet. We'll be loaded up and away before anyone notices." James was giddy, but did his best to contain his excitement. James backed down to the coal bunkers. He couldn't see what his fireman was doing, but didn't give it a second thought. He sizzled happily. I'll show them, he thought cheekily. What James didn't know was that his fireman was shoveling regular coal into his tender. James had forgotten the bunker the other engines used was right next to Henry's. Soon the fireman was finished. "Right, James," he said, "off we go." James puffed away as quickly and quietly as he could. He arrived at the big station full of pride. He had plenty of steam and was so early that his train wasn't ready. "Never mind," he scoffed. "I'm so strong I'll have this sorted in no time." James set to work, smoothly shunting the trucks in line. The trucks were surprised, but didn't want to jeopardize the newfound respect they were receiving. Soon, all was ready, and the guard blew his whistle. Here we go, James chortled. The trucks couldn't have held back if they wanted to. James took off like a rocket. James sped down the line. Hillsides and houses were a blur. "Perhaps this wasn't such a good plan," remarked the fireman. The driver, trying to keep his balance, said nothing. James was early at every station, made no fuss about shunting, and seemed to leave as quickly as he came. Every passing engine was quite surprised. By the end of the afternoon, James arrived back at the big station. He was sizzling in a siding, feeling very pleased with himself. "Couldn't be better," he smirched. "Why waste that special coal on an engine like Henry when I make much better use of it?" "I beg your pardon," James gulped. Walking towards him was Sir Topham Hatt. "I had come to congratulate you on your fine work today," he rumbled, "but it appears we have another matter to address." James gulped. "As far as I'm aware," continued Sir Topham Hatt, "only Henry is permitted to use that coal. Now, is your name Henry?" No, sir, it isn't." "Then why did you take that coal?" At that moment, James's crew appeared. "Pardon me, sir," said the fireman, "but you've got it all wrong." By the time he'd explained the trick, James was aghast. "So, all day, I've been using irregular coal?" The driver, fireman, and even Sir Topham Hatt burst out laughing. James blushed. "Well, James," smiled Sir Topham Hatt, "I must apologize for my previous assumption. You did do a splendid job today. Hard work does not go unappreciated on my railway." He paused. James grinned in anticipation. "As such, you will continue with good work for the remainder of the week." James was speechless. Now that we know what you're really capable of, it should prove no challenge for you. Besides, finisher Topham had, I'm sure it will dissuade you from any further schemes of taking Henry's coal. James did stay on Good's work. He hated it. He wasn't about to disappoint Sir Topham Hatt. He worked hard all week and was thankful when it was over. He was going back to the sheds when he saw Henry and Percy at the coal bunker. You know, Henry, giggled Percy, this coal makes me feel stronger than ever. Sounds to me like you've taken James's special coal, laughed Henry. James said nothing. He just sulked in the shed.
Hello, Percy.
Oh, what do you want, Diesel?
Oh, nothing. Just thought I'd come and gloat about how we Diesels are so...
Revolutionary, I get it.
Hey, you didn't let me finish!
Oh, what a shame, Diesel. We engines have better priorities, like, you know, running a railway.
Ah, yes. But have you heard what Fat Hat told me earlier this morning?
What did he say?
Well, he told me that you were going to be sent to the scrapyards to help Harry and Bert.
The scrapyard?
Oh, yes. Did he not tell you this morning?
No.
Well, if he's sending you to work there, you know what comes next, don't you?
Scrap. You know what? Today's been rather peaceful. No screaming from the trucks, no David Metton in sight. Ah, bless. Well, the yard's probably going to get noisy again soon, Duck. How? Well, Diesel's returning from the works after that accident he had. Oh, you mean the accident that you caught?
Oh my god, for the last time, will you shut up? If Diesel hadn't been on the same bloody line as me, he'd be as annoying as Bill and Ben right now.
Well, I'm just hoping he never returns. He's an absolute cut. Oh, God. Spoke too soon. That useless
Hello, you two. Lovely day, isn't it?
Nice to have you back, Diesel. Well, it was lovely till you showed up.
Duck!
Well, I'm glad you're back. So Topham wants you to shunt my train if that's alright.
Alright then.
Why are you being nice to that moron, Edward? He's nothing but stupid. Yes, a stupid engine who will do all my work when he can be bothered to leave the shed. Saying that, he's also rather polite to the trucks. Yeah, if you count biffing them off the rails as polite. Well, call me a mental case. Hello, Sir Lowham Hat. But I believe that engines like Diesel can change. Edward, you clearly not had your meds today, have you? They'd probably give him some special fuel or something. That's why he's so cheery. He'll do something stupid at some point.
Your train is ready, Edward.
Thank you, Diesel. See you, Duck. What's so funny?
Oh, you'll see.
Oh, Edward, you thick old fart.
Waddle away, waddle, waddle, waddle.
Oh, will you shut that